Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for your testimony. I have been listening very attentively in my office at your testimony. And let me just ask first a few questions, because my focus has been on this committee, what we can do in Congress to make sure that we are not allowing the Internet and others to facilitate anti-money laundering, et cetera. So, Mr. Asher, I guess I'll ask you the first question. I think that in your testimony, you mentioned that Congress should amend the Bank Secrecy Act to facilitate anti-money laundering data sharing among banks. Now, the issue that we recently had to vote, is that there's a general concern among Americans about personal information being widely available to a range of institutions with little knowledge about how that information is being used. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on this conflict and how Congress should proceed with improving the Bank Secrecy Act while also preserving the individual's human rights to privacy, the debate that we have going on in Congress right now.
That's a great question, and I appreciate you asking it. Look, bank secrecy, the Bank Secrecy Act was actually not passed to protect bank secrets or privacy. It was designed to stop anti-money laundering in 1971. They just changed the name because of concerns. I'm concerned as a private American citizen about information, about personal information being divulged. But unfortunately, the sort of cat's out of the bag as we look at the credit rating bureaus and everything else. The amount of data that like an Experian or someone will have about any of us is almost ridiculous. But it's ironic, though, that banks are reticent to share data with other banks, even though it's allowed under the USA Patriot Act, Section 314B. You can share banks, I think A or B, I can't remember which one. Banks can share AML, anti-money laundering data with each other, but they can't pool it. If you could pool it, if you could do sort of the Visa or MasterCard processing of anti-money laundering data, you'd see massive schemes that could be stopped by banks at a relatively low cost. Because you'd see that, this guy just opened an account at this bank in whatever city, and then at this bank in this city, and they're smurfing the system, they're setting up a money laundering network. But right now, no one can see that. So sharing the data would not only reduce costs dramatically for the banking system, it would improve effectiveness. They'd still be obliged to not share that data with anyone outside of, official channels. They couldn't provide it to, they'd just be sharing with each other. They're allowed to do that. So it's not going to get divulged any more than it already is being divulged. So I'm not that concerned. I just think, economy of scale does help in trying to stop things from occurring. It also can bring down costs. Moreover, a consortium could be in a position to receive watch list data, even classified data from the U.S. government, and I think we need to consider providing that. We provide it again to our airlines and shipping lines. If we think there's a Maersk ship that's containing a container full of, let's say, some weapons coming in the United States, we're going to tell Maersk, there's a container, you got to inspect it. Do we tell the banks that they're doing business with drug traffickers or Hezbollah? No. Only through public divulsions. And I think we should keep these things, we don't need to publicly approach these issues and tell the terrorists that we're looking at them. We can provide.
You know that debate is going on.
I do, and I think it's a healthy debate, and I am concerned. But I don't think if this system's done right, it's not going to lead to any more divulsion of private information than is occurring already. In fact, it just might be much more effective.
I'm just running out of time, and I would like to have this debate more and more. But again, I'm trying to figure out what we can do as a committee. Let me jump to Mr. Barrett real quick, because I think that you stated in your testimony that corruption, along with other forms of poor governance, particularly in the delivery of justice, is possibly the most significant driver of terrorism in the world today. So I was asking, want to know maybe, and you can elaborate on what role that the Financial Services Committee, with our oversight authority of international monetary organizations, what role can we play in better ensuring governance in nations struggling with terrorist organizations?
Well, I think, was that for?
Well, go ahead.
No.
Well, I think that what you're doing is absolutely right, because I think that as corruption, corrupt officials, criminality and so on, the lack of the rule of law is such a driver of terrorism in these areas where essentially the people are completely dissatisfied with what's provided by government, the more you can sanction those individuals, those government leaders and others who are involved in the corrupt practices and in the financial skullduggery that goes on in the general criminal world, then the less, obviously, the less dissatisfied people will be. If they see justice being served at least in another jurisdiction, even if not in their own, that will be very encouraging to them. So I think that it has a knock-on effect on the terrorist problem.
Gentleman's time has expired.